Here we go. Happy Thursday and welcome to Fix It in Camera and Finesse It in Post. Today we're going to be chatting with a special guest, and we're going to be talking about, does gear matter? And I know that's a loaded question, but it's something that actually, it's an important question. But today, who we have on the show, I'm going to introduce him, and he's actually probably one of the best case studies of does gear matter. So he's going to give his perspective on what he thinks. But I just want to say hello to everyone that's in the chat right now. Basha, hello. Melanie, we'll see if gear matters by the end of this. We'll see if we change your mind one way or the other. Bailey, just want to say hello. Jashim, hello. Happy Thursday, everyone. What are you guys working on? You guys working on anything exciting? What are you working on that's exciting, that's giving you that passion right now? But yeah, let's bring onto the stage Josh Sattin. He has a small YouTube channel with 180,000 subscribers. And then he has an up-and-coming channel, which is called Content on Content. So his farming channel, he started about 2 years ago, maybe a little bit more than that. He'll talk about it a little bit more. But he has a channel called Content on Content, which is more about the creating process. But the reason I want to bring him on today is to talk about gear from his perspective. So everyone, please give a nice warm welcome to Josh Sattin. Hello, happy Thursday to you. Say hello to everyone, and everyone say hello to Josh.
Happy Thursday, Raphael. Thanks for having me on, man. Psyched to be here and to chat about whatever you want to talk about today. Gear is always exciting.
Yeah, does gear matter? That is the topic. What is your just baseline, right to the point? Does gear matter?
It does until a point, right? So like you can't make a video without gear. So like you have to have a camera, you have to have lenses, you have to have a microphone. If you're inside, you need some lighting. But at a certain point, it stops mattering as much. And I think, especially now with technology being as good as it is and the cameras coming out are all like, they all look amazing. I mean, like we're online arguing about this camera versus that camera, but like, frankly, Raphael, I know we've talked about this. It's like, man, you could put a pretty cheap camera in either of our hands and we'll make it look good. So I think gear matters until a point. I should say that.
I'm going to say that gear does not matter, because just as you said, if someone gave you a camera now today, because what you said, that when you started your first channel, your farming channel, that you were actually learning not only farming at the time, but you were learning how to make videos. So what did you start on? Did you go out and buy a red camera? Did you go buy out, all the drones, and then you started your channel? Like, did you go buy all the gear, and then your channel just immediately exploded? That's what happened, right? That's what I'm assuming.
Yeah, you got to go get the red, and the whole crew's got to come with it. So no, I started my channel about 2.5 years ago on my Pixel 3. Mm-hmm. So that was the phone that I had, and I don't even think it was new when I had it. And I bought a $20 tripod off Amazon and a $60 microphone that plugged into the phone, and that was how I started. I didn't even know I had very basic photography skills from maybe when I was a teenager using an SLR back in the day, but it was one of those things, like, it's not about the camera. And I watched back some of those videos and they're cringy, like, of course, because like most of us, as you get better at making videos, you look at your early stuff and it's like, oh, that's cringy. But my delivery was there. Like the points were coming across. Like, I don't feel bad about those videos. Never wanted to remake them. Like, they got the points across to the audience. But then you start like learning and you're like, why is this happening? Why is that happening? How can I make this look better? And then you sort of, you learn. But no, you don't need, you could easily have a channel with a phone, especially nowadays. The phones are so good.
I completely agree there. So I just want to bring up Melanie's point here, that if gear doesn't matter, why aren't you using an iPhone for this live stream? It does the trick, right? Yes, absolutely. And a lot of channels actually do live stream from their iPhone. The reason I'm not using it is because I do have access to this, but I didn't buy this gear to start the channel with. And also the channel that I'm working on is a video and lighting channel. So I'm actually talking about how to use this gear and how to make it look better. So like the Peter McKinnons, the Maddies, they all do a lot of their work with these bigger cameras. But I would say arguably one of the best vloggers out there, Casey Neistat, he uses a GoPro, he uses an iPhone, he uses anything that he has his hands access to. He uses M50, he uses small cameras, point and shoots. He used everything under the sun. And watching one video to the next, I wouldn't say that some videos look better and some were worse. We were watching because we were watching Casey Neistat. He was the reason we were watching those videos, not because his quality was fantastic. He made a whole HBO documentary on HD tape, which if you look back at it, it was like home video style almost. It was almost to a point where, it was kind of grainy, and that adds to that style. So I think the better question is, instead of does gear matter, is when does gear matter? Because if you go to diehard film people that shoot on film, they would say only shoot film, don't shoot digital at all. Like analog is far superior. Like just because I have the Canon EOS R, which is a fantastic camera, but why don't I go and buy the R5? It's a far superior camera. Like it's $5,000, $6,000, and I was rocking the iPhone 10 for the longest time, which I thought was a fantastic camera until I got my hands on the 13, which is also great. Does the quality get better? Sure, absolutely. So when does when does gear matter? That's really what it comes down to. Because of the type of channel that I'm doing, gear matters. Absolutely, because I'm talking about the gear and how to use it. But in Josh's case, he started on so that was a phone, right? Like you started literally on your phone and you started shooting content.
Yeah. So when does gear matter? That's a tough question because I think it depends on what your goals are and what you're working on, right? If it's just for your YouTube channel, that's debatable for sure.
Yeah.
But like if you're getting hired for client jobs with certain expectations and that sort of thing. But I think are we really just trying to stick to YouTube, Raphael? I mean, I don't know.
No, because again,
Okay.
the question has to be when does gear matter? If I was on a feature film shooting $100 million, it's like, no, I'm not going to use an iPhone. If I was walking into an interview position where a client is paying me, thousands of dollars to be there to make them look as good as possible, gear matters. If I'm chasing my kids around the backyard, I just want to capture the moment and I want to get there as quickly as possible. Gear matters when you have the time to set up, when you have the time to do stuff. But when you're in a run and gun scenario, if something stops you from getting the shot that you need to get, then gear is in the way. So gear doesn't matter at that point. It's more important to get the shot. I remember having a conversation with a DP who and he would shoot lots and lots of interviews, and sometimes he would be going through an entire day shooting for a company, and you would get later in the day, and you would get to a point where he needs to get 3 more interviews, but he's running out of time. That he would actually set the lens to f4. He would put the light in one place, and he would just start shooting because for him, getting the shot was way more important. It mattered way more than how it looked because there's no way to recreate that footage once he left, and he sometimes set up 2 or 3 extra cameras that were just whatever he had on him at the time. So he had his A camera. So that's really my standpoint is gear matters when it doesn't get in the way. And the moment it gets in the way, it no longer matters. If that makes sense. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. I'm a huge proponent of that. I always keep my kits as simple as possible. And also, Raphael was saying, about me and my channels, like I film everything by myself and I'm filming myself often, but I also do sort of documentary style videos where I'm filming other people. And I just want to make sure that it's really as simple as possible because if I'm doing all that stuff, like I can't have the camera get in my way. And I've gone back and forth between, mirrorless cameras and cinema cameras. And I'm just now landing on using a cinema camera more often because I want the features that it has. But when I first started using cinema cameras, I was like, it was just too cumbersome for me. It was slowing me down. Like I could shoot faster and easier and get the things I needed to get done with a mirrorless camera. So a lot of times I think we get caught up in the newest camera, the bigger camera, the more expensive camera. But I know myself and that I'm just going to get obsessive with like trying to eke out all the quality. And some of that's just for me. Like, is it going to get me more views on my farming channel? Like, I don't know, but I enjoy it. So part of it for me is nerding out on it and trying to like learn how to do it as best as I can. That's just part of my personality.
Yeah. And the fact that you're taking the time to learn it, you're not learning it on set or as you're trying to do it. Now, like one of the biggest arguments that I get into is that there are people like, yes, gear matters. Do you need to have all the gear that you and I have to do a YouTube channel? No, probably
No.
not. Like, do I need to have? Because I'm shooting this on a C200. You know, full stop. It's a fantastic camera. Could I do it on the EOS R, which is, you know, 1/3 the price? Sure. Can I do it on the iPhone? Yeah. If that's all I had and I didn't know how to use the other two, then this becomes way more valuable to me actually publishing stuff than me trying to figure out how to use the camera. Like my biggest hurdle when I started the YouTube channel wasn't the gear. Not at all. My biggest hurdle was being in front of the camera and being able to articulate thoughts that when the viewer was watching had something of value and they enjoyed the points that I was making and they learned something for the tutorial, or when I reviewed the piece of gear, they understood what the benefits were, what they weren't. Not once I remember having a conversation with anyone saying like, "Did you watch that movie? It was shot on an Alexa." Like nobody cares. Like what's the last movie that you watched that was actually shot on film or Alexa or Red or like it? Like yes, the quality needs to be there because it has to be spotless and perfect, but no one cares which camera something was shot on. The prequels of Star Wars were shot on HD videotape. You know, like those were $300,000 cameras, but like everyone's like, but they look terrible. But those were the best cameras of the time. So does gear matter? They could have shot it on film, which was in George Lucas's mind subpar quality. It's always an interesting debate because I think the question is, when does gear matter? Does gear matter for YouTube? For you? Like, how about you guys in the audience? What do you guys think? Do you guys, how much do you believe that a successful YouTube channel can be shot on 5-year-old technology, which it's not the latest gear, like even 5 year, like how about 10-year-old technology? Like there's still people shooting on the Canon EOS 5D. Can people make good quality with what, 12-year-old cameras right now? Let's see what they say. So I still feel comfortable with my specific setup, camera, lens, look. So if I can focus on content. Yeah. Once you kind of dial in the look, there's no need to be like, well, there's a better camera. It's not going to improve what you put in front of the camera. Like, have you guys heard the term, put the money in front of the camera? Put it on camera. Like that's like what they mean is get the money in front of the camera with the better actors, with the better lighting, with the better sets, with the better props or visual effects. That's where the money well spent is. Yeah.
I just want to make a point that when you're trying to grow a channel in a niche that's not the filmmaking videography space, it's very different. So I can talk about my journey a little bit in the farming world, because when I started in spring of 2019, I looked at all the other channels that were out there and there weren't that many. And at the same time, the quality was not good. Like barely anyone used a tripod even. Like it was all handheld. It was very shaky. Everything, it didn't look great. Like no one shot in 4K. And I was like, you know what? That's one way that I can stand out it's really what we have to try to do on YouTube is like, how do you stand out amongst the noise? How do you get above that noise floor and let people, notice you? And so that wasn't my goal from the beginning, was to get like high quality. Like I just started and then I was like, oh, I think I could learn how to do this. And there's a lot of niches out there where you might be able to stand out with a little bit better of a camera and learning really like how to use it really well. So in some ways, like that can give you an advantage when you're trying to get above the noise, for sure.
Yeah, and I actually believe, and I think, Melanie, you make a really good point. Does gear just mean camera gear, as in camera body, or does it refer to lighting and audio equipment? That's when gear matters. 100%. I believe that good audio is like 90% of a good video. If you can have good audio in your video, the screen can be black. I made a whole video about this to drive the whole point, where I just put text on screen and it was just my voice, and then I reversed it where it was no audio and just text on screen. And then I made the screen black and it was just my voice. Like, people listen to hours and hours of podcasts, but how many people would watch a video with no sound and just people doing stuff? Like, if there's music, there's still sound, but like, imagine just watching YouTube with zero sound on it. Like, people will listen to a YouTube channel that has a good conversation going with not even paying attention to the audio. So
Have you ever made a video without talking?
Technically, yes, but not with me on camera. So
No, for YouTube. Have you ever made one without talking for YouTube?
have I made a non-talking? Like, what do you mean? Expand on
Yeah,
that.
like I made a video. I didn't say a word during the whole video, and it was like, I don't even know how long it was. Maybe 10 minutes long. That was a really interesting.
But you had music though, or sound effects, or
I had
something.
Music.
You had,
Yeah, music, and then just recording. It was like a video of me working, but yeah, that's a whole other thing. But I want to add on
1 million
to what you
views,
said
right?
No, I wish.
Yeah.
I want to add on to the gear thing. It's lighting. It's microphones is huge. Like, getting audio right is, if you can get that right, like, people can forgive so much. But the other thing people don't think about with gear, and I'd say this gear does matter. Like, get a decent computer, get a decent monitor. Like, you can get DaVinci Resolve for free. That's a free piece of software, and it's like what Hollywood uses. So I'm using Final Cut now, but I used DaVinci for a couple years and learn how to color grade, learn how to edit better. Like, that stuff doesn't cost any money after you invest in your computer, but like, have stuff that like increases your throughput, like gets you to be more efficient. Anything like that will help you so much in the creative process, because as we were talking about before, with gear getting out of the way, when your computer works really well and you can just dump 4K footage in there and you don't have to make proxies and all that kind of stuff, like, that makes a huge difference to me. That's like one thing that's really helped me, and that making sure that I can get the videos made quickly and made accurately, because the goal with YouTube is like, you just crank out a video and you're on to the next one. So I think that's the whole part of it. And lights are fairly inexpensive. If you need like one, get like one inexpensive light with a softbox, get a decent microphone, and pretty much whatever camera, or shoot outside. I shoot outside almost all the time. I actually prefer to shoot outside. And then you don't need any lights. So you can keep it really simple.
I think you can actually set up, like, because I've done videos showing how you can use a window as a light source to make
Absolutely
good looking videos. But I think the one point, when does gear matter? Computers. Yes, 100%. That's the one place that I would totally like, after you get a camera that is within your budget, but like produces the image that you want to get. Because if you want that depth of field and all that kind of stuff, then definitely get a camera with an interchangeable lens and a low f-stop. But when it comes down to being able to do something with it after, the whole finesse it in post, having a good computer that will play back the footage regardless of what camera you're using, and then you're able to tweak it and make the image look better. Like, fixing it in camera, like being able to capture a really great image in camera and then doing those tweaks in post, spend the extra few $100s and upgrade the computer to something that will run smoothly, not just for the next year, but for the next 2 to 3 years. Like, every time I buy any piece of equipment, any kind of gear, this is when gear matters to me. When I'm buying something, I know I'm going to buy it for 3 to 5 years or longer. I want it to be performing at the quality that I bought it at when I'm ready to sell it. Like, that's when gear is important to me. Because like, once I step into something, I'm with it. Like, I'm 2.5, almost 3 years with the R. I haven't bought the R5 or the R6. Do I want to? Yeah, of course. I'd love to just get that and just spend the money. But there isn't a need for it, because this camera takes fantastic photos and shoots really good video, even in my 4K videos for YouTube, right? When I work on project or client projects, I'll rent gear for that one day because I don't shoot enough to justify spending $10,000 or more on a fantastic camera. Would I love to play with those cameras? Yeah, but every time I play with them on set, they're amazing. But then it would just sit on the shelf behind me until the next time, and it's just like I'd rather just rent it for a couple $100s, use it, have the great footage, and then spend more money on a computer that will then be able to make it look and master it to a great place. Let's see what you guys are saying. So Bailey agrees with the audio. 100%. Audio conveys story easier to facial expressions. Yep. So next to audio and the computer, which are that kind of the off camera kind of stuff, the one thing that I believe, I truly, truly believe, is that learn lighting first, because it will make any camera a great camera. You can make an iPhone look fantastic. Will it look as good as a Red camera? No. But does it need to look as good as a Red camera? Also, no. If you're trying to go for a specific image and only that camera is able to produce it, sure. But for majority of people on YouTube, I think some kind of mirrorless camera, entry-level camera, will be able to provide fantastic quality footage for a tenth of the price. The rest put into the computer and onto great audio capture devices.
I want to add on to your idea
Please.
of buying it and keeping it for a little while, because I'm someone that changes cameras way too often. And I admit that. And if you're changing cameras more often, or you're changing your computer more often, any of those things will cause disruptions in your workflow and cause you to, it'll lower your quality for a little while. It'll add more time. It'll frustrate you. It'll allow you, it won't let you, it'll get in your way. So for me, like, you know, if I buy a new computer, like I want it to last for a while. Or if you buy a new camera, it takes a while to get used to a camera, like to really feel like you get a good handle on it. And so when you're moving cameras around or switching between brands, even, it gets really hard. So I think the best thing you could do is try to like have it for a while, really use it, learn it to its potential. And when you feel like at that point that you need more, like when you've really exhausted that camera and you're like, I really want this feature, you know, I really want this thing, then it's time to upgrade. But like, you know, like Raphael's saying, like the R is still working for him. So like, that's still it was a great camera when it came out. It's still a great camera, and it will be for a while. Another great example is like the A7 III. Like people are still shooting the crap out of that camera, and it's still an awesome camera. And that camera's what, like 3 years old now?
Okay, now I got to figure this out. I'm using an iPhone. I can't. Hold on. I'm trying to figure this out. Oops. Nope. Yeah, so I'm going to go nice and wide. There we go. Take you up on the challenge, Melanie. Can I shoot this on an iPhone? I need a mount. See, that's the other
I'd
place.
switch too, but gear does matter. Yeah, tripods. Yeah, tripod is a huge thing. That's one thing, Raphael. I bought a really nice tripod, and I am not regretting that purchase whatsoever. That is like the best thing I've bought in the last year, hands down.
All right. Can I get this to work? Maybe. Let's see. Anyways, it's not working for me. I can't mount it. But yeah, that's the one place. Give me a second. There we go. I'm back. I tried. I just couldn't mount it. Literally, there's the iPhone.
Gear.
See, that's the support gear. That's the place. Whoa, that's a weird. Oh,
yeah, but like you said, like cameras, tripods, lights, like those are the thing, like microphones.
I did a whole post about it where all the support gear. Hold on. Let me see. Right here. Can I get this in? Yeah. So I want to show you guys. So all the support gear that's up here, this is more valuable to me, like the auto pole that where I don't have any actual gear down here, no tripods, no stands. This is way more valuable to me than the camera that these can be shot on, because like every time we're on set, the camera's always the camera department has three people, usually the DP, the gaffer, and the first AC. The lighting department will have like electrics, will have the all the grips, all the gaffers, the everything, like the crew that is needed for a professional lighting setup is huge, and the amount of gear that goes into it. The camera comes in a nice little package, and then you have the gear truck, which is just jammed with stuff. And it takes an army of very talented people that know what they're doing to make beautiful images on bigger sets. But the one thing I wanted to chat with you about, because you had mentioned this, that you're literally the camera operator, the editor, the writer, the on-screen talent. So you're the crew and you're the host. And when you are the crew and the host, you have to literally coast through the entire process, where you have to think about the next shot, and you have to think about what you're actually saying. You have to think about the audience and how this conveys to them. Just the crew of one is this mystical beast that I find is fantastic, because I spent my whole career behind the camera, directing, lighting, doing all that kind of stuff. But when you're in front of the camera and like switching and trying to, answer stuff and then script, and just like how much of simplified gear setup is your goal? Like, are you still trying to refine that perfect little setup where that's where gear really matters? The right gear, not necessarily the best gear, but the right gear to set up for your workflow. That's when I think gear matters. So how much would it matter to you?
It's huge. I spend a lot of money on getting the gear to be simple as possible and to get out of the way. So you're talking about auto poles. Like, I got auto poles in my office because I don't want to have tripods. I don't want to like have to move it like 3 inches every time. Like, I just come in and I turn the camera on and I'm ready to go. Like, I've invested money in having this setup ready to go, because I was doing a live stream every 2 weeks on another channel that I help collaborate on. And so like, I just wanted everything like ready to go. And so now I'm doing a little bit more recording in my office. I can come in, I can just turn everything on, and I can hit go. It's different when I'm recording somebody else, or if I'm recording myself outside of my office. So I'm dialing in 2 setups, one for each one, just so when I'm ready to go, it's like, I don't have to think about it. It's like, this is the perfect setup for filming myself. And this is a great setup for making a documentary like I do for my farming channel. And I spend money because I've reinvested over time money I've made in YouTube to buy gear that allows me to do my job easier. And that's the bottom line. And like, yeah, I could do it with cheaper gear for sure. But like, there's things that I really enjoy, and it's also a passion of mine to create these images and tell people stories. And I also think that when I'm shooting documentaries with people, like, I have a little bit of an obligation or responsibility to make them look as good as possible. I'm showing people's farms, people's businesses. I always just try to make it look as pretty as I can. So yeah, Raphael, to answer your question, it's super important to me. I mean, I do a lot of thinking. It comes down to exactly which camera, exactly which lens, which microphone. I don't want to think about it. I want to like be like, I'm going to go film a vlog. I grab this setup. It's ready to go. Like, that's really important to me. And I'm lucky that I'm able to buy the gear, but that's one thing I've always like, I don't like big rigs. I like keep it really small and tidy, and everything can fit in one case and I can get out the door. And that's just kind of how I like to roll. But like, yeah, I think it's important for me for sure. Especially when you're doing one-man band stuff. You can't be like on set somewhere or, shooting and we're like, oh, sorry, this thing broke, or, like, you're taking up people's time. So, you got to make sure that you're comfortable with your gear and it works for you and what you need. I'm also like, I'm a big fan of zoom lenses, and like, I know a lot of people like, have preferences on that, but I'm like, for me, it's like the quickest way I can get it done. There's like things like that like, that work really well for me. So I don't know if did I answer your question, Raphael.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just showing everyone the your channel where you go about and you literally have a farming channel. So you don't have a gear or how to YouTube channel. You don't have a gear review channel. You literally are doing farming. And like I said before, the fact that you did farming plus learning how to do all this camera stuff, and you started your channel with your iPhone, and just that's where content is king. It really comes down to really shines because people really resonate with what you're doing. And how often on your farming channel have you had people say, "What did you shoot that on? What mic are you using? What's your lighting setup? What's your like what
You'd be surprised, Raphael. I definitely get some messages from people, and I remember like when I upgraded a camera. I think I was upgrading from like the A7 III to the A7S III, and I got a
yeah."
couple. The first video I posted, someone's like, "You got a new camera, didn't you?" Like, and I was like, "What? You guys noticed?"
Damn
So
it.
I
So
think
gear
there's some
does matter.
gear does matter. Did it get them to watch? Did it get more people to watch the video? No. But to those people, they acknowledge that.
Did
I
it
do get
make
messages
your
from people
job
asking me.
easier?
Well, yeah, the A7S III has a flip screen, so it made a huge difference to me.
So that's when gear matters. Again, those are
Yes.
those are the things that I was kind of talking about, where because you have a channel that is dedicated to one topic that is unrelated to gear. Like you talk about gear for farming and how to set up for that, and that's what people are there for, not the type of lens
Right.
that you're using. So like your perspective on this is so valuable because a lot of people start making channels and then they have a little bit of success, and then people start asking, well, how did you get success? It's like, well, I was doing the thing I wanted to do. And then we get into this. Well, I know that I almost fell down this rabbit hole where it's just like I wanted to make videos about how to make YouTube videos or how to what's important for YouTube. It's like, and I kind of forgot that, like, no, it's important to just keep making the content that I initially started on, those three pillars of ideas, and really focus in on what is going to help the person on the other side of the camera, and have them feel like they walked away with that value of like they learned something because they came to the video to learn about the piece of gear, or like in my case, or a technique that is proven and tested tools essentially. And that's why people were coming to your channel, because they didn't want to know about the gear. They wanted to know about the process of the farming thing that you were talking about.
Yeah, and so I don't want to make a huge pitch for my new channel, but in that way,
Oh,
like
please do. It's I think it's fantastic.
okay, well,
and the people here are the prime audience to love that. Because, okay, I'm going to let you go and talk about
okay.
content on
Well,
content.
yeah. I mean, the big thing for me is like I absolutely love YouTube. Like I absolutely love it. Like I spend a lot of time watching content, and for me, I am a former educator. I taught high school math for 5 years, and I think that's just to tie back into what we were talking about before, Raphael, was that, for you, the camera stuff was the easy part. It was being on camera that was the tough part. And for me, it was the other way around. Like I have a couple of bullet points. Like I'm good to go. Like I can talk in front of anybody. It doesn't matter to me. So what I've realized is that I am really passionate about YouTube as well. And because I don't come from the content creation, I don't come from the filmmaking videography space, that I think it's cool to be able to help other content creators in other niches succeed in telling their stories and help educate other people. Because frankly, if I can help teachers teach better, that's really powerful. Like if you are, no matter what you're excited about, your niches, your expertise is in, if you can make a video that gets your story across, it gets your points across, that maybe excites or inspires other people out there to do what they love doing better, like that's incredible. And so like I felt that within, I don't know, some amount of time on my farming channel, I'm getting messages from people like, hey, I started a new garden and growing food for my family and my community. I finally left my job that I've wanted to leave for 10 years and took the jump into farming because of the content that you provided and the inspiration you've given me. And I get those messages all the time, and I don't they, it's really, YouTube is really powerful in that way. And when you build a channel and you build an audience, like you have a lot of influence over people, and I want to use it for good ways, but like, I think if I can help other people create better content to do all those things in whatever niche or expertise you're in, like that's what I'm going to try to do on content. Because for me, like I don't come from that videography background. Like I'm not part of that world. Like I'm coming at it as as an educator and as a farmer essentially. And I absolutely love YouTube and content creation. So that's what content on content is. Originally, when I started it last year, it was, I didn't have the right approach, and then life got too busy and I had to sort of shelf it. And now I'm kind of like, well, I'm kind of at that like middle. I want to focus on like mid to high level content. And I'm also doing a lot of discussion videos with other creators. So like Raphael will be on a few videos soon, and like some other creators, because everyone knows so much, and there's so much in the culture and in the work, and there's so much that goes into it besides like what camera you're using, like what f-stop did you shoot at, what LUT are you using, like most of us don't talk about that stuff when we talk to each other. Like it's like, oh cool, I got this new lens, I love it. Like, oh cool, what do you like about it? Like that's about it. We're not like, it doesn't get like super technical most of the time, unless like I need help specifically. And like, Raphael, like what setting do I use for this thing? Like, but generally it's the more interesting thing is, like if a bunch of musicians get together, they're probably not talking about what new guitar pedal they're using or like what strings they're using on their guitar. They're going to talk about like influences in their music and things that they're like to create. And, it's an art form. You're an artist when you're making videos. So anyways, that's where I'm at with content on content. I'm having so much fun with it. And yeah, go ahead, Raphael. You're muted.
I am muted, red light. I just want to bring up Melanie's point here because I think it's a great point where what would gear matter more when starting a channel and buying, say, you had access to, $100,000 worth of gear, but you can only make one video and it has to be a great video. Or would you rather have the entry level gear and have the opportunity to make 100 videos? At the end of making one great video with $100,000 worth of gear, would you be more satisfied, or would you be more satisfied with the quality after making 100 videos over say a year? Because I think what you said and what Melanie's saying here is that with every video that you started making, you were able to improve on that last video into the next video. So you saw what the mistake was and then you improved on it. And all of a sudden, it wasn't the gear that necessarily got better, but you understood that if you did get the gear and you could do this one little tweak, that you can make it better. But you still made it better without getting that new gear, until you got to a point where the gear that you had no longer served at the quality that you were trying to create at, because you understood your skills were a little bit beyond what the gear was able to produce for you at that time. And I think that's the important thing, where everyone that starts on YouTube, by the time they get to their 50th video, they have a sense of how they like it, how they like lighting it, how they like their positioning. They know their good side. They know what sounds good. And then by the time they get to their 100th video, that's when everything just really starts to be like, okay, this is really looking good. Your editing is good. Like Melanie also mentioned that people notice that more, that the quality, like especially if someone watched your first video and then came back a year later, be like, oh wow, your quality really improved based on that. And every YouTuber that's been out there, their first video, they're almost embarrassed at it because it's like their presence wasn't there, the audio was bad, the lighting was terrible, and they could have been shooting on a red camera. Like for instance, like here you go, it's like doopy-doo. It's like, I'm the exact same camera. Let me just turn off more lights. And it's just like, if I don't know what I'm doing here, this is not going to look good. But because I understand the lighting and because I understand that, having all that kind of stuff, by the time you get to your 100th video on YouTube, if YouTube is the goal, the thing that you want to do, and you have a passion, the thing that you won't shut up about, like me and Josh, where the reason you started content on content is because you love the camera gear stuff and you get obsessed with it. Like just because you don't go and buy the latest thing, you're still going to watch the latest video of the latest release, be like, well, that would be nice to have, but it doesn't mean that you have to go and buy it. And I know that you and I have both got into that hedonic treadmill where it's just like, ooh, if I only had that camera, then everything will be better. And then you get that camera and you film something and you're like, well, shit, this doesn't look any better than the last thing that I filmed with my crappier camera. And, and then all of a sudden we have this huge crash.
In fact, it usually looks worse the first couple rounds because you don't know how to use the camera. That happened to me big time. Like I switched cameras and I'm like, this camera's supposed to be better. And I'm like, did I make a bad choice?
You weren't better. And I wasn't better. And that's what it comes down to, where it's like you realize that, like, no, I'm still crappy. I need to learn how to use this new tool, right? It's just like, it's not a hammer where it's just like, well, it did the thing, the other thing worked. Anyways, I digress.
It's all good.
Because I know that everybody that watches the gear reviews, it's like, and the gear review, like if it's a anything over $1,000 anything, it's like, this is fantastic, this is great, look at the image you can get from it, and everyone's like, ooh, if I get that, my stuff will look like that. And the answer is usually no, not really, unless you read the manual and do some tests and then film your first thing. But no one just like, manual, get out of here, and then they just start filming and it's just like, why doesn't it look good? Like, I know I had that with the C200, and I was coming from a Red, and I bought the C200 as my own personal camera. And when I turned it on, and I'm like, I'm gonna shoot raw everything, and then it's like, no, like it just like looks terrible. I'm like, why doesn't it look good? And it's like, because most of the time I would hand it off to a colorist, but when I wanted to do for myself, it doesn't come across instantly. So like, I don't even shoot raw. Like, I don't understand why people are like, it needs to shoot raw. Why? Why do you want to spend?
I do not get raw.
Why do you want to spend $10,000 on a hard drive just to hold that one video that you shot on RAW in 8K? Like, no, stop it. You don't need it. Shoot 8-bit. If you can make 8-bit look good, by the time you get to 10-bit, it's going to look amazing. You don't even need to worry about RAW 12-bit, 16-bit. Get out of here.
I saw a big difference, Raphael, when I switched from 8-bit to 10-bit. Having shot on 8-bit and grading things for a while, when I first got my first 10-bit camera, I was like, oh man, this is a big difference. But like, if you handed me that 10-bit camera a year earlier, I wouldn't have known what the hell I was doing with it. Like, it wouldn't have made a difference. But when you've like got to the point where you can push the 8-bit around just until it breaks, and you understand the limitations and how you have to shoot with it, you get a camera that's got more stops of dynamic range, and you're like, man, this is beautiful. Like, you know how to use it.
Most people, making one shift to how they film and how they record can make their cameras almost instantly better, exposed properly. All of a sudden you have that full dynamic range of 12 or 13 stops. Like, why do people need 16 stops of dynamic range when they don't understand how to use it? Like, if you overexpose something, well, great. Everything above 16 is gone. Like, you've overexposed that because it's like, it's no longer within the camera's range of 16 stops. But you always have to be in that perfect place. I want to ask you, you had a Blackmagic. You shot it with Blackmagic for a little bit?
No, okay. I've never owned one.
Yeah, you said you went from Sony to Canon. Okay, that's right.
But Canon before that. Canon, Sony, Canon.
So again, does brand loyalty matter?
Dude, I do not care. No, I'm so sick of that whole Canon versus Sony versus Fuji versus. Just stop it, everyone. Like, they're all amazing. They're just tools. I just think that people get all worked. We can talk about fanboyism and all that stuff, but like, people get worked up because they like want to feel justified in their purchase. And like,
yes,
just look 100%. At the image. It's the image at the end of the day. I mean, and this is back to really, does gear matter? And like, when you get to a certain level of $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 cameras, it's like the differences are so small and nitpicky. It's more like your experience using the camera, and it's like little stuff that people like. I'll talk to people and they're like, "Oh, should I get the C70? Should I get the FX6?" And like, "Oh, this." I'll talk to someone and there'll be like one little thing that someone like pisses them off about the camera. Like, I didn't even think about that. That doesn't bother me. And then you go back and forth about it, but yeah, dude, I don't care. It doesn't matter. It's really how it works and what the image looks like.
Yeah, and one of the things that drove me nuts initially when I got the the R was that in lower light or in darker scenarios, there's a lot of noise. Like it was brutal. And I was like, I can't use this. I cannot use this. I need to, that's it. Like it's gone. And then, I actually read and talked to people that had the R and how to expose it properly and do that and what the actual baseline, the base ISO for the camera was. And the moment I understood that, and it's like you have to overexpose it just a little bit, and then kind of bring it back in post because you can drop those shadows down. Beautiful images. Like I'm like, I love this, the quality of image that I can get from this camera. Are there better low light cameras? Yeah, 100%. Would I be able to use those just as well? Yeah, probably. But if I got the Sony A7S III in my hand right now, I probably would turn it on with the same mindset that I would set this camera at, and it would do the same thing where I'm like, this is shit. I can't use this. This the quality is bad. I don't know what people are talking about. And then take a moment, understand the camera, where its sweet spot is, and then all of a sudden everything will look amazing again. And that's where it comes down to. And not only like understanding the camera. I said this before. I've said this many times that I have access to this camera. You have access to this camera. Everyone has access to these cameras. You can rent these cameras. It's if you know how to use these cameras, that's way more important than that camera. And it really comes down to anybody can rent or get access to the best cameras in the world. But not everyone has the skill to use them. I can rent a camera. I can't rent somebody's skill for a weekend. I can't buy a skill. I actually have to go and learn how to do that. A skill is not transferable. It's not rentable. It's not accessible to everybody. You either take the time to learn that skill and get good at it, where people are then hiring you and putting a camera in your hand. That's way more valuable than the gear that you can have access to. Because I can go and buy a red camera, but if I don't know how to light a scene, that camera's useless to me. But put it into the hands of someone that knows, that has the skill to make beautiful images, then it's the best camera in the world. So is it the camera that matters, or is it the person that's literally driving that machine? When does gear matter?
Yeah, I think we're sort of dancing around that idea, but frankly, like it's always the person using it or the person in front of it or the lighting. The camera's only one piece of the whole puzzle. And so when we talk about what does gear matter, most of us are talking about camera gear. But I think people do generally forget about all the other things involved. And yeah, people are the most valuable person there because like, as I said, like I could pick up a new camera and it'll look awful the first few times I shoot with it until I learn how to use it. And I have a lot of hours logged on the R. Like I shot almost a full year, like a lot of my content from 2020 was shot on the R for sure. And I love that camera for sure. But then, when I get the A7S III or even the A7 III, for example, I got that for a little while and it was like, do I shoot an S-Log too? Do I shoot an HLG? Do I overexpose? Like what do I have to do there? But frankly, what I've realized is at a certain level in the new sort of 10-bit cameras that have come out, the dynamic range is insane. And it makes my job easier now that I know how to not, blow out skies and stuff like that. Like I can, when you're shooting with something that has, 10, maybe 11 stops, like you have to be careful or the sky's just going to be completely white because I film outside most of the time. So when you get those more advanced cameras, like it does help, Raphael. Like it really does. Like once you understand it, because I'll go sit down and like, the finesse it in post, like I don't have to screw with it as much. I'm not like,
yeah.
Like cranking up the shadows, they get noisy and then I got to put noise reduction on it or whatever. I don't deal with any of that stuff. Like just get it right and learn the limitations of your tools. And that way the gear doesn't really matter.
You know what? I concede because I do believe that gear matters when it matters, but if for most of the time, in most people's cases and scenarios, I don't think it does. So it's like I can go back and forth. Like the answer is when it matters. That's when gear matters, because
Yeah.
if if you're using it for family videos and stuff like that, it's not. It doesn't really matter. No one needs to be shooting home videos on a Red. Feature films, you definitely need that. It needs to be the best quality because it's a business. They're trying to sell that to make money from it. And I think that's the barrier right there, where it's like if you're making money with your gear, it matters. If you're not making money with your gear and you're doing it as a hobby and you're just having fun with it, learn the fundamentals because you'll be able to get fantastic images from it. Like my cameras growing up were all film cameras. There were no double slotted film cameras. There was no there was no like unlimited storage. It was just like if you blew it, you blew it. Like it's like if you didn't know what you're doing, it's done. And I don't think that skill has gone away with digital cameras or with the new computational photography. It's just going to make it easier to get better images and just finessing it in post. I feel that the skill is still required. Buying the most expensive camera will not tell you where to put that camera, how to frame up the shot, where to put the light, how to mic it properly, how to edit from shot to shot. I don't care what camera you have. If you don't understand those pieces, you might as well just be making an audio play at that point because it'll be just as exciting to watch. If you understand how to pull emotion from different camera angles, if you understand what lighting, how that subconsciously communicates to the viewer, if you understand camera movement and being able to reframe while you're moving the camera, those are the things that are going to make your videos more engaging on a deeper level that any amazing camera would be able to capture. Like I do these kind of talking videos because I've set limitations to my YouTube channel and how much time I actually spend making a video. When I'm on set, we have steady cams, we have DPs, we're moving the camera, we're taking hours to get one or two shots perfectly because we understand that when the viewer's going to be watching it, we need them to feel this thing. We need them to be focused on that one part of the scene and not distracted by something in the background. Those are really important. And those are the kinds of things that I'm trying to do on my main channel to communicate camera angles, to communicate what lighting communicates to your viewer and how to get them on a subconscious level that they don't even know that they're experiencing. Those are the things that are so, so important. Those are the things that Steven Spielberg is a master of, or name any great director out there, is able to capture those kind of moments, like putting one shot next to another and how that idea transfers. And builds that idea in the viewer's mind. Those are the things that I find fascinating. Those are the things that I want to communicate to people. Like, use the gear that you have, tell better stories, and get people on a deeper level. That's how.
And one thing about YouTube is great is that there's no rules on YouTube. Like you can literally make whatever you want. Like you can make it as rough as as cinematic, as filmic as you want, or you can like just cut it up and make it, there's some channels that are really large that purposely shoot on low budget cameras to make it look more authentic, more gritty. But
they still sound great.
They still sound great. That's true. And they know how to manipulate the image to they want. Like if they want a certain look, that's the look they're going for. But the bigger thing when you are doing this by yourself is that you need to think about how you're putting your video together, how you're telling your story, what shots do you need to get, what you need to actually say in front of the camera. And not take 1 or 2 hours for each shot. YouTube doesn't have that timeline. Like that's not how it works.
No. Yep.
You gotta get it done and move on.
Yeah, there was a writer years and years and years ago. She was a fantastic writer. Still is a fantastic writer. But she told me because there's always one of those things that I wanted to get better at writing, just in general. That was one of my deep desires and still want to become better. And one thing that she said has stuck with me over the years. Why use 10 words when 3 will do? And YouTube is that perfect case scenario where if your message is compact and you've said the right 3 words in the order, then the other words are not necessary. And the same thing goes with shots. Like if you've communicated that message, move on to the next thought. move on to the next points. You don't need to reiterate certain things. And understanding that is one of the keys to probably your growth on YouTube, where you have communicated those messages in your videos on your farming channel, and it just becomes, the gear wasn't the thing that made you likable and successful on YouTube. It's the way you presented the gear, the way you communicated, the way you interacted with the audience, and how they were able to extract that value from those videos that you made. So like, huge applause to you for doing that, and literally learning how to farm while learning how to make videos at the same time. Like, that's just like, everyone give Josh a follow on or subscribe to his channel. Their links are down below. But yeah, like, just it's a feat to do what you do, because from my side, I'm doing consistent videos, but you've done it in a way which is, you're literally doing your passion and making videos on top of that.
I appreciate that, Raphael. And I just want to say that no matter what you're working on, if it's farming or, you know, I'll use myself for example, farming or making videos, don't be afraid to like admit you make mistakes. Like, I do it on camera all the time, like on my farming channel, where be like, oh, I totally screwed this up. Like, I lost this crop. Like, this thing happened. People, like, everyone's human. So like, don't feel like when you look at these creators that make perfect videos, think that you can't do that, or you're not good enough, or your story doesn't matter, or whatever, because it does. Like, get your story out there, help educate and inspire people. And I don't know, like, you don't have to be perfect. That's all I have to say, because no matter how perfect, no matter how perfect you think you are, you're gonna look at that video in a few months and and cringe. It'll be cringy, so don't worry about it.
Yeah, and then one of the things that I try to tell people that are starting YouTube, it's like, once you get past a certain amount of videos, you're only thinking about the video that you just posted, and then your next video, and then you kind of literally forget all the videos that you were before that, like until you look at your feed and go, huh. But yeah, it's one of the things that I find fascinating is that I kind of hesitated to start my channel, because I'm like, there's already people teaching this, there's already people showing this, there's already people talking about this, and I didn't really understand and value that some people resonate better learning through others. Not necessarily just because there's one person teaching it doesn't mean that that connects well with certain people. Like, there's videos that I put on my channel that I thought like, oh, like, people have already done this. This is just my take on it. And people are like, this, I finally was able to understand the concept. Before this video, I wasn't able to understand. I was like, oh, okay. So the way I presented it, the way I taught it connects with people. So I feel that everybody can have an audience out there as long as they're consistent and they make progressively better videos, with the 1% better over time. And if the quality becomes better over time, then that's just a bonus on top. But the way you communicate, the way you see the world, there's going to be people that connect with you on that same level. They may not connect with like the best YouTuber out there, but even the fact that people were able to talk with me and I responded to their question, because bigger YouTuber channels, they don't have time. It just becomes a barrage of questions. So having that opportunity to connect with people and to teach them from a different perspective is great. So yeah, any final thoughts on, does gear matter? Josh?
Yeah, I mean, get good with whatever you have. Like, that's, you know, whatever, if it's your phone, like, learn how to get good with that. And no one in life is successful by doing the same thing over and over again. Like, you're always got to be pushing yourself to get better at whatever you're doing. If it's personal fitness, if it's financial goals, if it's, you know, becoming a better father or a partner or whatever, like in your professional career, in your hobbies, like you're never going to get better if you just do the same thing over and over again. So push yourself, analyze what you're doing. I don't know if you ever do that, Raphael, but like, I'll watch old videos of mine sometimes and my wife thinks I'm crazy, but like, I'll look at old videos and be like, whoa, this was really good. Like, what did I do there? And sort of analyze it and watch what other people do and, you know, and take inspiration. And yeah, so gear, I don't know, like, get something that works for you. If you're filming yourself, just get something with good autofocus and a flip screen. That's all I have to, and a good microphone. And then after that, like
100%.
You know, you know, if you can't see yourself, it makes it really hard. That's all I have to say.
Well, my final thought on that is when you do start getting comfortable with the gear that you have and you want to experiment with bigger ideas or more dramatic shots or even better color grading, that's when gear starts to creep into that, like, I think you're going to matter at this point. And definitely, if you're making money with it, like if your YouTube channel is growing and you're able to put money back into the gear to get better audio, to get better lights, to get better sound, to get better, you know, the microphone stands and better tripod, because buying good gear is going to last you a lifetime. And buying a good camera, buying good lenses will last you much longer than buying any camera body, because camera bodies people usually swap out in 3 to 5 years because the computers are better, the quality can get better, but that's only if you're actually doing something with it on the post-production side. So gear does matter when it matters. I guess
and one other thing,
final thought,
Raphael, keep your kit small. That's another huge thing. I just keep your kit small. Once you start collecting multiple camera bodies, multiple lenses, multiple microphones, I get that paralysis by analysis. If you guys don't know that term, you're just you don't know what to use, what to do. Like, get a fast zoom and just, you know, learn how to use it. Like, you have to shoot everything at 1.4? No, like 2.8 is pretty good. Like, I don't know. Keep your kit small, because you get really, if you're always switching lenses, like, you don't really learn each one, you know, like learn one and think about, I don't know. I can talk about this all day long, but keep your kit small. That's what I want to add.
Yeah. You know how many people I've talked to, they're like, they went out and they shot, this is my favorite lens, the 50, I don't know if you guys can see it, but it's the 50 1.2. I love it. It's a portrait lens. It's a fantastic lens. It looks amazing. It's a great B-roll lens. But when you're out and shooting portraits, if you have one person in front of you and you're too close, the tips of the nose will go out of focus, or the eye will go out of focus because it captured like here. And like the depth of field is so shallow that like shooting at 1.2 is almost useless. Put two people in the shot, forget it. Like, you have to go to like 2.8 just to get both people in focus. It's just like, but understanding that is so much more important than having a 1.2 lens. It's knowing when to use that lens and when it is best. And that comes through trial and error. So again, if I handed this to someone that, it's like, if I handed them my entire gear set and be like, make me something pretty, they'll come back with just garbage. Because I know that if I didn't know what I was doing, I would be making garbage. So you have to know the equipment to make it matter. So gear matters when you know how to use it. And, you know, I think Melanie made me laugh the other day because she's like, this is gear matters. And that's the hill that she'll put her stake on and just, but it's like, no, it doesn't. It can't, because there's no scenario that that one piece of gear will be the best. And there's no scenario where, you know, having 1 second, buddy, almost done. See, gear doesn't matter when you can't close the door, but it's all good. But yeah, so
a door lock. There you go. That's the gear.
Well, it's blocked right now. So see, it's grip gear matters at this point. But yeah, Josh, I just want to say thank you for joining me. Everyone that is in the comments, thanks for being here. Gear does matter. Gear is important, but only when it is. So when is gear important should be the question. And I think anytime you're about to pick something up, ask yourself, how are you going to use it? And is it going to fulfill you for the next 3 to 5 years? And put your money into gear that can grow with you. Because that's really what it comes down to. Oh, gear does matter when it comes to audio. When it comes to audio and to computer. Everything else is just like, you're going to change it 3 years from now anyways.
Well, Raphael, thanks so much for having me on. It's a real pleasure sharing me with your audience and having these conversations. So I really appreciate it and enjoy it.
So guys, make sure you go subscribe to John Sattin's channels. If you're into farming, go check out his main channel. If you're into this kind of gear kind of stuff and these kind of talks, go subscribe to Content on Content. I've linked them both down below. He is a great guy. Go check him out. Show him some love. All right. I'll talk to you guys soon. Josh, once again, thank you so much for joining me today. You guys have a great day.